The Season 1 finale of Andor did not disappoint. It didn't address everything I was hoping it would, but that's okay. It left things open for the story to continue, obviously, but I still felt satisfied with this as a conclusion to the first half of the entire series. I cheered, I laughed, I teared up. It was emotional, inspiring, and exciting. I was shaking as the credits rolled. This was everything a great Star Wars story should be, so let's jump straight into Ferrix, where it all started. The establishing shots catch us up with several characters. Right off the bat, we start building tension. Dedra Meero is here, and she brought some Death Troopers. I've talked before about how they've been used with varying degrees of success in the past, specifically feeling a little nerfed in Star Wars Rebels, but no matter what, they are a sign that the Empire means business. Death Troopers in a scene is never a good thing. Meanwhile, Wilman Pack is building a bomb while a hologram of his father watches over him. Wilman has become a parallel of Cassian. Clem Andor was hanged by the Empire over a decade earlier. Salmon was hanged recently. Cassian's response to his father's death was a failed attack on the clone troopers he held responsible. Wilman's response looks to be similar. We know Cassian's act of defiance failed and landed him in prison, but we're gonna wait to address the big difference between then and now later on in the episode. A mixture of Cassian's enemies and allies prowl the streets of Ferrix at night. All of these characters with different allegiances coming together. This is exactly what I was hoping to see. I was hoping for chaos, but the way it's all shot tied my stomach in knots. This whole season has been amazing at slowly building up the pressure and the tension so the inevitable explosion is insanely cathartic. I think this episode might have done it the best, making sure we know where all of our Ferrix characters are and whose side they're on, all while we slowly watch someone literally making a bomb. And we quickly see that at least one member of the Ferrix community has turned against their neighbors, Nurchi. He eavesdrops on Brasso and Zan and then manipulates Zan to get information out of him. Even though Cassian paid off all his debts back in episode 7, he still had some enemies in town. Or maybe Nurchi is simply driven by greed. We later learn he made a deal with the ISB to trade information for money and a flight off the planet. He makes the selfish choice, sacrificing the community for his own sake, and that never ends well in Star Wars. Over on Coruscant, Mon Mothma is still wrestling with a similar problem. Will she sacrifice her daughter's future happiness for the sake of the rebellion and ultimately the entire galaxy? I think that predicament is so interesting. We've learned that Lita is involved in Chandrillan traditions. She'd probably be on board with the whole arranged marriage deal, but Mothma knows that in the long term, she'll probably wind up like her and Perrin. And I so loved seeing her try to use her husband to fix their money problems. That scene is another example of exactly what I wanted to see from her side of the story, using the fact that she knows her driver is a spy to create false leads that he will then pass off to the ISB. I love all the subterfuge. And then back on Ferrix, we see Cinta doing kind of the opposite of what Mothma fears for Lita. Cinta is sacrificing her current happiness and current relationship for the sake of the rebellion. The thematic transitions between scenes flow together so well, but she basically abandoned Vel so she could follow Dedra around town. And when they do meet up, Cinta is all business. She is giving nothing at all to Vel. Cinta is still very much a mystery. We know she hates the Empire and she wants revenge for stormtroopers murdering her family. There's still the possibility that she killed the hostages on Aldhani. She's got this lifeline of Vel, the possibility of a happy life, but she just can't take it because her focus is on revenge. Obviously, the Empire needs to be fought, but Cinta is fighting because she hates, not because she wants to save what she has. And then we cut to Cassian, who goes straight to his father's memorial brick. I loved that flashback. Everything Clem says is meaningful and connects back to the journey Cassian has been on this entire season. He's talking about cleaning up old pieces of machinery that are still valuable. People often miss them because they don't look past the rust. That is Cassian. Over the years, he had his rebellious spirit beaten out of him. Every time he rebelled against some outside force, be it the crashed ship on Kenari or the clone troopers on Ferrix, he did so alone. He lost someone important to him, and he was separated from his family. He started to think meaningful action against oppression was pointless, so he did smaller things, and he did them selfishly. But he never lost who he truly was. He just needed to clean off the rust. This all lines up with the Clone Wars message: who we are never changes, who we think we are does. In the series premiere, we meet Cassian, and he definitely has a reputation on Ferrix. He owes money to everyone in town, he always needs help from his friends, Brasso and Bix and B2 Emo. They all like Cassian, and they're all willing to help him, but they're also rolling their eyes at him like, what have you done this time? He's a bit of a burden, but these past 11 episodes have changed him into the kind of person that, yes, wants to fight the Empire in a more meaningful way, but it's not like Cinta. It's not for revenge, it's to save his friends. The second he hears about Bix, that becomes his mission, and he takes some time to prepare for the coming fight by finally listening to Nemik's manifesto, and it's so great. I don't feel like I can dive into everything he says because it's all good. Maybe I'll do a separate video on just that, but it's all classic Star Wars. There will be times when you feel alone, when your task seems insurmountable and unachievable. You won't succeed in everything you set out to achieve, but you can't stop trying. That's the final word of the message. Try. It's like Nemik is telling Cassian, yeah, I know you failed in the past, but that doesn't mean you stop. You can't stop. Cassian was kind of forced into taking on the Empire on Aldhani and Narkina 5, but he saw that when groups work together, they can achieve the impossible. They can take on an entire garrison. They can liberate an entire prison. They can make the Empire bleed, even if it's just for a moment. And I love when that moment comes back. As Cassian prepares to rescue Bix and Brasso asks if he's going to take on a full garrison, he has quite literally done it before. He can do it again. That entire scene was also moving. I struggled with the fact that Maarva's death happened off-screen. It felt so wrong, but it put us in Cassian's shoes. He didn't get any closure, and neither did the audience, until right now. Brasso passing along Maarva's words were moving, and I loved that Cassian got to hear her belief that he would one day be an unstoppable force for good. Charlotte from the Sky Talkers podcast said that when Cassian tells Jyn her father would have been proud of her, he's probably also thinking that his mother would have been proud of him too. And then we continue back on with building up the tension. We see Nurchi spying on Cassian's allies, we see Cyril and Mosk on their way to the city, we see Luthen reminding Vel and the audience that they are there to kill Cassian. And then it starts. The time grappler starts grappling. Maarva's funeral begins, and holy cow, was it intense. I've been saying I wanted the time grappler to be involved in what Maarva called the sound of a reckoning, and here I got it. But I couldn't have imagined this. I love that the Empire laid out what they said they would allow from the Ferrix citizens. They would get one little section of Rix Road, only 40 people could gather there. It was to start later in the day. The Imperials refer to it multiple times as a box. But the people of Ferrix are like, scob all that, you can't fit us into your box, we're gonna be who we are. That's the Empire. That's tyranny. Showing up somewhere and having no regard for the people who live there or their culture or their environment. The Empire doesn't want unique and individual worlds. They don't see these people as citizens of Ferrix. They simply see them as citizens of the Empire. They want to fit them in a literal and metaphorical box, and we get to see seemingly everyone in the city rebelling by simply rejecting that idea, by wearing their own uniforms, by playing their instruments, by celebrating Maarva the way she deserves, by letting the time grappler set their schedule like he always has. The banging of metal in episode 3 was tense, but the constant banging of the anvil coupled with the marching band dialed it up to 11. I was terrified, but in the best way. And do you want to know how to make me truly terrified? Put B2 Emo at the front of the procession as they all walk down the street. That little pause to gather everyone before assembling right in front of the Empire. This episode probably took a year off of my life. And then Maarva's speech added it right back. Every word moved me. Every sentence resonated. She talks about how they had their community, they had one another, they were largely left alone, and they were insulated from the Empire through the Premor Corporation. It was easy to ignore the Empire when it only came around once in a while. She says they've all been sleeping, connecting her message back to Nemik's words to Cassian about how he is unable to sleep despite his conviction. Cassian slept like a stone until the prison on Narkina 5, and then he started to care. He started to try. The Empire grows when you're sleeping. The Empire grows when you let it grow. Star Wars says that every planet matters, every culture matters, every life has value, and you have to care about one another. If you're on Ferrix and you're only caring about what happens on Ferrix, you are letting evil grow. And it will get strong enough that it eventually will come for you and what makes you different, whatever it is about you that doesn't fit into their imperial box. It's not enough to just care about yourself or just your family, just your town or your state or your country. You have to care about everyone. The second someone wants to start treating any group as some other to be feared or controlled or removed, it is a problem. It happened in history countless times, and it still happens today. Whenever someone tells you another group doesn't deserve the same rights and that you should be afraid of them, you have to ask yourself why. Because the people saying that don't value individuality. They don't value what makes us who we are. They value their own comfort over someone else's ability to simply be themselves. They want to fit everyone into the same box, just like the Empire wants to do with Ferrix, and Maarva's not having it, and she tells everyone to fight the Empire. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Again, I don't think I've ever been so panicked as when Captain Tigo approached B2. The second he tipped him over, I literally said, "Oh, you're dead," because B2 has value. Throughout the entirety of Star Wars, droids don't always get the best treatment. Even some of the heroes treat them with disdain and annoyance. B2 doesn't have a lot in common with everyone gathered around him, but they still value him. When he's attacked, Brasso doesn't even hesitate, using Maarva's actual remains as a weapon, which is amazing. The time grappler starts up again, and a stormtrooper is sent to shut him down, literally a symbol of Ferrix's culture. There is a reason we all latched onto him as fans. It's because he is unique and special. He's something we've never seen in Star Wars before, an aspect of this culture that we enjoy, and the Empire wants it gone. Of course, that stormtrooper never stood a chance. Wilman's bomb turns the riot into complete and utter chaos. The order is given to capture him, and he would have been taken just like Cassian was years ago, but the difference I said I'd mention earlier is that he's obviously not alone. Ferrix is no longer asleep, and Brasso rescues the kid. Tigo screams for his soldiers to open fire, and I can't help but think back to Cassian's line in the prison, "Power doesn't panic," and this is panic. It perfectly reflects Nemik's manifesto. The Imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. The second that illusion of control is broken, the mask falls, and all the Empire has left is violence. And it is awful and messy. We have never seen blasters feel this impactful, throwing people around the street. We're meant to feel the deaths and sacrifices of these characters. We linger on Zan's face for a long time, to the point where we start to feel uncomfortable and we want to look away, but we can't. The show won't let us. Nobody wins this fight. It's not a big rebel victory, it's just Ferrix and therefore the rest of the galaxy reaching its breaking point. We revisit Cinta and see that she's not out to help anyone. She is literally hunting an ISB agent. All she cares about is hurting an Imperial. She seems completely unmoved by anything happening around her. Compare that to Saint Pegla, who is dragging B2 Emo to safety. Thank goodness for you. But Luthen watches the fighting from afar while Vel and Cinta pack up to leave. I wasn't sure Luthen told Saw the truth when he said he was a coward, but he is. He wants to take down the Empire, but he's always sending others to do his dirty work. This is what he wants, people rising up to fight, but he doesn't want to actively take part in it. We saw him watching Maarva's speech, and I really hope it starts to affect and change him in Season 2. I think that would be a good arc for him. I also think I've been really hard on Luthen and his pragmatism the past few episodes. I can't argue that his methods aren't effective, but like I said, Star Wars says every life matters, so I don't like seeing him playing a game of chess with people. In his mind, he considers himself to be the king that can't get captured. He would never risk his life for someone he considers to be a pawn like Bix. But Cassian will. During all that chaos, he fights his way in and out of the hotel with his friend in tow. They get to the shipyard, and this is such a great end for his arc this season. Everything comes full circle. He gets all these people who are important to him onto a ship, the same ship he was on when this entire mess got started. But he spends the first 3 episodes asking B2, Bix, and Brasso to lie for him and help him escape. It's all about him. But this time, he takes care of them instead. He makes sure they get out, and he stays behind, and he tells them to climb. He stays behind so he can find Luthen, not to kill him, not for any kind of revenge, but to basically admit he was right. He puts his life in Luthen's hands, and by doing so says he is a true believer. He is willing to give it all for something real, if Luthen will let him. He's a rebel, changed by the events of the past 12 episodes. I love how his actions on Aldhani inspired Maarva, who inspired him right back. The season began with Cassian being taken away from his family on Kenari, taken away from his family on Ferrix, but this time, he is making the choice. He's not letting things just happen to him anymore. Incredible. Seeing him changed by all these various characters over the course of the season, seeing him wash the rust off, so to speak, I loved it. This finale revisited so many themes and character moments. The Cassian side of this episode and this season was perfect for me. My only real criticism for the finale is I wished we got to see a little more from Mon Mothma. That's true of the entire season, but there will be plenty to explore for her in the second season. The reveal that she is, indeed, introducing Lita to Davos Golden's son surprised me. It's not like it's a marriage proposal yet. There is still room for her to escape this situation, but still, this is a dangerous road, and I look forward to seeing it play out. I also need to jump back to talk about Syril and Dedra. I would not have minded seeing more from Syril, but I like how his story was handled and how it ended, even if it was vague. I was guessing Syril would recognize Luthen's voice and capture Axis to gain some Imperial attention. Whether it would be positive or negative attention, I'm not sure. But the fact that he saved Dedra's life is intriguing. She said she owed him her thanks, and we also saw that Cinta murdered one of her aides. There is a job opening. I certainly don't think she wants Syril right by her side, but I can see that as his path into the ISB, and I still think he and Cassian are on mirrored paths. Finally, I'll mention the post-credits scene where we learn what the prisoners were building on Narkina 5. I mostly think this is funny, because I was convinced we would never find out. I guess we still don't know specifically what those pieces are, and I did guess along with tons of fans that even if we never found out, it made sense that it would be related to the Death Star. I'm glad this wasn't part of the main episode. It's a fun little thing to see, but we all know that the Death Star is out there. The visuals are cool, and it is distressing to know Cassian was forced to build part of the super laser that will eventually kill him. But I think that's all I have to say about the season finale for now. I've got a ton more to talk about. I want to talk about the season as a whole. I have hopes and even anxieties about season 2, but I'll save all that for videos in the near future. But episode 12 rocked in every way. Just like nearly every episode in this season, it just left me wanting more. I'm gonna miss diving into this series. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments, and come back at 6 p.m. Eastern to join our live after show, No Ifs and or Buts, to talk about everything I didn't cover here with Molly and our friends at Nerdy Nightly. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for all our Andor coverage, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page for our video reactions and audio commentaries for every new episode. And you can check out this playlist for all of our existing Andor content. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.